So the next part now is to increase our bandwidth going between our distribution. Now, just bear in mind, I've put it here at the aggregation layer. When you're looking at smart switches and things, you can absolutely do link aggregation at the edge and anywhere in your network design, as long as it understands link aggregation, which is a very standardized way, actually, of increasing bandwidth. So let's have a look at that now. So link aggregation, if we just use one of our copper ports, for example, we're going to have a 1 gigabit link. And what we've done here is we've just uplinked the second switch into that network. There's no redundancy there. Adding a second connection actually means that we are putting them into what's called a port channel. Now, what a port channel means is that it's the same logical link. So it's one link now, but it's using both of those ports, and it's now a 2 gigabit link connection between those devices. So we've actually got 2 gigabits. More importantly, if our wire was to break or a port was to blow, we would still have the redundancy that's left over from us because that other link is still working logically. We can add more cable connections. We can add up to 8 on some of these devices. And what that would be done is put into what is called a lag group, which is link aggregation group. So I've done a group here of 8 links that blocks that is an 8 gigabit connection between those devices. Okay.
It's a lot of ports on the switch to take up, though, Craig, isn't it?
It is a lot of ports. Where I would use it, Alan, is not so much as 8 ports there.
Yeah.
That's just an example of what you can do as a maximum. I might use 2 or 3 ports and sacrifice it. Now, if you imagine that maybe this isn't a 10 gig switch, or maybe one of these is a 10 gig switch and the other one is maybe just a standard 1 gig ports that are available to it, but you've got, say, 16 cameras that are trying to run 4K streams, video streams. So
Right.
like a surveillance solution, for example, maybe 1 gig connection, trying to pump that up to an NVR that's plugged into the top switch isn't going to work. It's not enough bandwidth. So maybe just add in an extra cable increases that bandwidth between each other, and that's enough to send all the traffic from our switches and our cameras to our NVR solution that's stored at the core. That's the reason why we do it. Likewise, if the other ports were all full up of data users, you imagine everybody is trying to download things these days and trying to do their work and pull images and things like that. Sometimes having an extra bit of throughput between that and the core is enough to keep your company running for another couple of years before you consider a refresh at some point.
Well, anything to sell more switches, Craig. That's what we do. We should start selling cables as well after this course, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Okay, so again, we're looking at our switch now, and what I've done is I've gone to layer 2 features and then gone to my link aggregation. And what I'm trying to implement here is called LACP, Link Aggregation Control Protocol. Okay, so what I've said is on unit 1, and my ports, and then I've just turned the mode to on, or I might even put it into LACP mode or active mode, and then I've added a port channel. So what happens when I add a port channel? Let's have a look. Now you can see that I've used ports 25 and 26 as my link aggregation. I've put them into what's called a bundle group, and that's what I mean by that link aggregation group. It's called a bundle group in some cases. So port 25 and 26 is that link, and that goes to another switch. And on that switch, I've also created a link aggregation group now. So the port channel now is created, and what I can actually do with that port channel is I can treat it like a normal trunk. So if I want to do VLANs and things like that, I can absolutely send data down that logical cable, because really from the switch's perspective, this is one link now, and if I was to implement so many VLANs on that device or have it as a VLAN trunk, it's going to operate no different to any other port. Okay.